Okay, let's start reading Totally Freaky by Moya Simmons. Seriously spooky. There is something definitely wrong with me. I must be very ill, though I'm not covered with spots. And I don't have a temperature, and I can still stand on my head for ages without passing out. It's this voice in my brain. It's not the one I think with. I usually think with my regular voice, and most of the time my thoughts and I get on quite well. This other voice is freaky. It's high pitched and whistling, and it argues with me a lot. This horrible thing happened to my brain just yesterday as I was walking to the shops, minding my own business and thinking about important stuff like how many bags of chips I could eat before throwing up. Suddenly, there was a flashing pink light everywhere. It wasn't the sun catching my eyes. It was more like a million torches were shining directly into my brain, and I felt giddy and confused, as if I'd suddenly been offered a choice between 52 bags of chips and 27 chocolate ice creams. Then this voice inside me, and it wasn't mine, said, "Oh no, what have I done?" There was a brief pause, then it piped up again. "I'm sorry about the inconvenience. I'll find a way out of this." This was so weird. I I decide to speak to Terminator about it. He's my best mate. He looks like a wrestler, and when anyone in school says that I'm dumb, he just stands in front of me with his arms crossed and tries to look angry. Kids back off immediately. Terminator's real name is Matthew, and he's actually a wimp. He once fainted when he when he walked into a spider dangling between a tree and my front door. The spider thought this was so funny it lost its balance and fell out of its web. "Frogface, I think you're flipped," Terminator told me. "If you're really hearing voices and it's not just your conscience telling you to stop pulling your sister's hair, then you've definitely got a problem." Even as he was saying this to me, I could hear the strange voice muttering, "I have to logically compute how to remove myself from this body." Now the voice is even louder. I lie in bed trying to sleep, thinking of cool things like surfing and how riding a board through the wave is like sliding through the eye of a needle. Instead, I hear whining. "This shouldn't have happened. Frogface, I don't belong here, but I'm not sure I'll be out of here in no time." Now I'm really worried. Only Terminator is allowed to call me Frogface. My name's Arthur, after King Arthur from the Knights of the Round Table. My parents are heavily into noble deeds and flowers and soppy stuff like that. So here I am, totally freaked out. Then I think, could I have hit my head on my surfboard when I was dumped by a wave? Isn't it true that sometimes you don't even know how badly your brain is damaged until much later? But apart from the other voice, I seem to be okay. I haven't climbed onto the roof to pull faces at the family through the skylight since I lost my balance, slid off the roof and landed on the cat. I'm just an average, gassy 12-year-old kid who likes to sing in the shower and wear thongs to family weddings. So why is there this other voice in my head, and what should I do about it? Tell Mum and Dad? No, I'd better not. They'd rush me off to see the doctor, who might discover something gross. I once saw a movie where a guy had a twin, but the twin had no body, just a brain, and they argued all the time. So the doctors took out this squirming extra brain and flushed it down the toilet. They could do that to me. But what if they accidentally flush me down the toilet and leave the other voice in my brain? I'd spend the rest of my life trying to get out of the sewer pipes. At school the next day, I tried to pay attention. This is not something I'm good at. Mrs. Torts, my year 6 teacher, is always telling me, "Arthur, get that dazed look off your face and concentrate." But how can I concentrate when there are more important things to think about, like surfing? So usually I sit in class and think about how unfair it is that a guy like me has to go to school when he could be down at the beach skimming waves. But today I'm not thinking about surfing. I'm watching Sarah, who sits in front of me. She's sort of almost cute. And if I was interested in girls, which I'm definitely not, because there's no way I would be, but if I was, then I'd like Sarah. I don't stand a chance with Sarah, though. Not that I'm at all interested, of course. She's brainy, and she likes guys who are really smart, not dopes like me. Arthur, will you stop staring into space and repeat the question I just asked? Mrs. Torts sits at her desk. She clasps her hands and twirls her thumbs one around the other. She does this when she's stressed. We call her Mrs. Tortoise. She's small and round, with a sad, droopy tortoise eyes and a neck which sometimes disappears into her dress when she looks down at our test papers. Mrs. Tortoise wears round dresses that cover her just like a tortoise's shell. I reckon she doesn't go home at night. She just curls up at her desk, disappears into her round dress, and goes to sleep. Arthur! Mrs. Tortoise bellows. Her cheeks turn pink. You aren't listening to me. Stand up and take your hands out of your pockets and repeat the question I just asked. I stand up. Sarah turns around and frowns at me. Terminator shakes his head. I have no idea what Mrs. Torts has been talking about. Uh-oh, I don't want another detention. Frogface, you should listen. It's that strange squeaky voice in my brain. She's asking you the approximate population of Australia. According to my data on Australia, I calculated it at 19,934. However, as a child is being born approximately once every 1.2 seconds, it's now 19,935. Oops, 19,936. Whoops! Be quiet, I say. Not you, Mrs. Tortoise. Sorry, Miss Torts. It's Terminator. Matthew, I don't want him to tell me what you've been asking because I already know. Terminator looks at me as though I'm very odd. He's right. I am odd. The voice in my head continues to rattle off numbers. It's about 19,938 at this moment, but it could be 19,939 any time now, I say to Mrs. Tortoise. She is so surprised she arches her tiny neck. It slides out from her dress like a pink stalk. Well, I never, she says. You're right. The figures I have are slightly lower, but of course they're last month's figures, and more babies have been born since then. She looks at me through her droopy eyes. Very good, Arthur. Amazing, she says. I sit down. Phew. I start to think. What is going on in my brain? Then I get this brilliant thought. Maybe, just maybe, I've begun to grow a second brain. It's possible. I'm taller. I've grown 3 centimetres in the last 2 weeks. Maybe a new brain. Maybe a new brain began to grow at the same time. A bright brain. A brain that can do some work for me while I daydream about surfing. I feel relieved. So that's it. Nothing to worry about. I'm dead lucky, that's all. I've only been slack at school all these years because I wasn't given a proper brain at birth. Now I've got grown a spare. This is very good news. I may even finally learn to play Dad's old guitar now. I have the best day at school I've ever had. This extra brain is beaut. Write an essay on Captain Cook's voyage to Australia, says Mrs. Tortoise. Captain Cook, squeaks my extra brain. One moment while I consider my historical knowledge of this continent, Frogface. My extra brain is so smart, in no time it squeaks out the whole essay. Slow down, I say as quickly as I begin to write. Captain Cook sailed from Plymouth in 1769, both to study the transition of Venus over the face of the sun and to look for the great South Land. What did you say? Sarah turns and squints at me. Nothing, I reply. You said slow down. I'd have thought you were slow enough already. You've gone goofy, Arthur. You've been mumbling to yourself all day. You're speaking too quickly, I say to my extra brain. Too quickly? What are you on about? Sarah hisses at me. She flares her nostrils. She does that when she gets annoyed. Unfortunately, I often seem to affect her that way. Over dinner that evening, Dad says, we could do with some extra cash around here. I've got a little in the bank, and I've been thinking about investing in the stock market. We could buy shares in a computer and make a lot of money. Buy shares in a company and make a lot of money. What do you think? He stares anxiously at Mum, then scratches his eyebrows. Dad would love to get rich quick. He says our house is falling down around us. Everything from the roof to the carpet needs fixing. My 8-year-old sister, Rose, spits some potato at me. Mum says she looked like she just she looked just like a tiny rosebud when she was born. Personally, I'd have called her a weed. I spit some potato back. "Stop that!" says Mum, frowning at us. She turns to Dad. "But you don't know the first thing about the stock market," she reminds him. "Gold Coast shares look promising," I find myself saying. "According to the latest report, they found gold in their new mine." It's that new brain of mine. It's feeding me incredible information. Mum, Dad, and Rose are staring at me. "Gold Coast," echoes Dad. "How do you know about this, Arthur?" I say, is rapidly becoming my favourite word. I heard Mr. Robbins, the bank manager, talking about it at the supermarket the other day. Dad is surprised. Well, it's good to know you're interested in something other than surfing." "Actually, I'm not," I say quickly, because my reputation is at stake. "But maybe you should look at Gold Coast if you want to invest in the stock market, Dad." Mum and Dad smile at each other. Rose says, "I'm worried about you, Arthur. That sounded almost bite." "Oh, really?" I love to mimic Rose. She can't pronounce her R's. "Really?" "Stop it, you two," says Mum. Lying in bed that night, I stare out the window up at the dark sky. It's like a big purple quilt speckled with silver dots. "Yes, it's a wonderful sight," says my other brain. "Okay, Frogface, it's time to level with you. I've been sitting here quietly because I wanted to give you time to get used to me. I believe humans don't react well to stress, but now I shall tell you the truth." I completely ignore the voice and continue watching the tiny blinking stars. I wonder what's up there. Is it possible that other creatures live out on those tiny silver dots in the sky? Nah, I don't think so. They're just whirling balls of fire spinning around in space. I don't believe in aliens. It's too weird to imagine. I wonder if I can go surfing tomorrow, but maybe it'll rain. That'd be good. Then I can get out of mowing the lawn. I wonder if Mum will let me go surfing if it's pouring with rain. I wonder... "Your brain's like a runaway space shuttle. Can you stop talking to yourself for just a moment? I need to get a word in." That extra brain is extra bossy. "Be quiet," I say. "You're very handy to have around at school, but right now I want to be alone." "Frogface, please just listen. It's very important." This is very annoying. An extra brain, particularly one that's extra smart, is handy, but this one keeps interrupting my regular dopey brain. It'd better have something clever to tell me. "Okay, shoot," I reluctantly think. "I am not some extra brain that you just grew, Frogface," my extra brain says to me. "My name is Spitophony. Spit for short. I'm from the planet Twiggle. It's a long way away. Listen." Goodness me, you have trouble concentrating, Frogface. "I snuck into the space wormhole at the Space Museum. I was there on a school excursion. The space wormhole is a long tube which other scientists developed about 1,000 years ago. We travel in it when we want to visit different planets. It has lots of different places programmed into it. Earth isn't that popular because you're a strange bunch. I just punched in Earth at random because I was curious about how the programs worked. Curiosity has always been my failing. But how was I to know the guide would activate the wormhole switch while he was lecturing my class? One moment I was there, the next moment I landed in your brain." What rubbish, I think to myself. This new brain needs a good talking to. Firstly, Spit, I say to the voice, I don't believe in aliens. I'm a very logical Earth person. I think it's kind of cool that lately I've grown 3 centimetres in height and developed an extra brain at the same time. It's possible that you're a confused brain because you haven't had time to get used to me. "As I was saying," continues Spit, "my parents and everyone at the Space Museum will know that I've disappeared by now. They'll be able to locate me through the wormhole beam projector. Hopefully, I'll be transported back at any minute. So I wanted to thank you before I left for the hospitality you've shown me in letting me share your mind. It's been an interesting experience." "Sure has," I say. "Anyway, listen, tomorrow we have this big maths test. You're the smart brain, so we'll have to use you. Now go to sleep. I want you in top shape for the test. And stop freaking me out. I've already told you I don't believe in aliens. I've never believed in aliens." Suddenly, my thoughts stop. I blink. My bedroom is filled with swirling, dazzling pink light. Maybe the extra brain has taken over my eyes. I have no idea what is happening, and I'm feeling dizzy. What did I have for dinner? Then I remember the pink light and the way I felt giddy just before my new brain appeared. Maybe I'm about to grow a third brain. Is that possible? To my horror, I see a long silver tube as wide as a car in front of me. It's wriggling like a giant slug. Then there's a whoosh of air as I'm sucked out of my bed and into a gaping mouth of the tube. I'm starting to feel very anxious now. Even though it's obvious I'm fast asleep, I put my hand up to rub my head, but I can't seem to find it. This is some weird dream. In the morning, I must remember to write it down. It's only when I find myself tossed out of the tube and surrounded by exceptionally scary-looking creatures that I become seriously worried. This is turning into a mega nightmare. Freakishly frightening. I guess I'm lying on some kind of floor, but it feels like I'm stretched out on cotton wool. The walls are as luminous and shiny as a pearl, and the ceiling looks like transparent wobbly jelly. Through it, I can see 3 moons and more stars than I've ever seen in my life. I should be totally freaked out by this, but I'm not. I'm too grossed out by the creatures surrounding me. There are 3 of them. They are pale green with enormous heads, each with one blinking eye in the middle. Ribbons of snake-like purple hair wriggle around their heads. Yikes! The creatures have small, squat noses with 3 nostrils, and I can see heaps of tiny yellow pointed teeth in their large mouths. Their skinny bodies are covered by strange tunics made of shiny material that looks like the silver foil in Mum's kitchen. I stare at their fingers. They have to be about 10. There have to be about 10 on each skinny hand. They look like little green worms, all sliding and squirming just like their hair. How disgusting. The creatures seem to be talking to me, but of course I can't understand a thing. Then one of them comes right over to me and rubs her long head against mine. For some strange reason she seems familiar, and I have no idea how I know she's a she. She reaches towards me, and I shudder as 20 green fingers touch my head, peer down at my body, and I'm shocked to see green arms and legs and a silver foiled tunic. I start to scream, but a scream doesn't come out. I'm making a weird whistling sound. Then everything turns black. I have a dream. My sister, Rose, is annoying me. She has just decided that my best comics would make great toilet paper. Do I care? Of course not. I am an excellent and generous brother. I happily hand her all my all-time favourite comics. Sarah is saying how bright I am. She's smiling at me. I am congratulating that extra brain in my head for getting all the answers right on the maths test. Terminator and I are surfing. We are catching top waves. Then Terminator tells me he has seen this awesome movie about aliens extracting the brains of humans and eating them for dinner. I open my eyes. It seems like a lot of time has passed. I'm warm, and through the jelly ceiling I can see the sun shining. No! That small yellow dot in the sky can't be the sun. I can stare right at it without blinking. I look down at my wriggly fingers. They are moving all the time, coiling in and out of one another. I touch my face, just as I feared. 3 nostrils. The same lady creature stands beside me, and when I turn towards her, orange stripes slowly appear on each of her cheeks. She sits down at the edge of my bed, which is nothing like the lumpy mattress I'm used to. It feels like I'm floating. Tall creature rubs her head against mine. Again, I try to scream, but only a whistle comes out of me. Then another creature appears. This one is carrying something like a shiny cylinder. It must be a he, because he has wriggly tufts on his chin that look like purple whiskers. He takes what looks like a pen out of the container. Before I have a chance to say, "Don't you do that," he sticks it into the side of my head. Ow! Just as I thought. "You're not a Spitophany," he says to me. "I'm Dr. Clermont, Spit's dad. We apologise for the wormhole transporter problem, but we've never had this kind of trouble before." Strange. I can understand him, even though he seems to speak in whistles and toots. "This is a very interesting nightmare," I say to both creatures, though it doesn't sound like my regular Earth voice at all. As soon as I wake up, I'll write all about it. Or maybe get that extra brain I've grown to write a great story. "It's not a nightmare," says the alien doctor. "Spitophany accidentally landed in your brain. He's a terrible nuisance. always fiddling around with things that aren't his business. He should never have touched the wormhole controls at the Space Museum. We tried to beam him back, but it appears we've taken the wrong brain. And I want you to know we're doing all we can to get you back to your Earth body. When the alien doctor opens his mouth to talk, I notice that his pointed yellow teeth are moving. These aliens are very wriggly. Hang on, I've never believed in aliens. Enjoy your stay with us. It will be a very educational experience. I'm sure the transporter problem will be solved quickly. A smaller creature comes into the room. I'm Dorf, your brother. Well, not really. I'm Spit's brother. Welcome to Twiggle. You can tell us all about Earth. I want to go home. I start to wail, but it comes out as a high-pitched squeal. We're truly sorry, says the doctor. We're working on the problem. Meantime, think of us as your alien family. Who knows when you'll have an opportunity like this again? His fingers, all 20 of them, squirm as they stroke my giant forehead. Big deal, I say, pulling a face. But am I pulling a face? My cheeks feel strange. No need to get upset, says my alien dad. Just calm down and those blue stripes on your cheeks will fade. Blue stripes? It'll be great to have you as a brother. Oops. You as a brother for a while, says the weird alien kid. I'm sure I will learn a lot from you. That's right, says his mum. Now it's time to get up. What's your name, dear? Frogface, I say, fiercely, hoping that will scare them. Their mouths open. Frogface? What a funny name. Hissing noises, followed by beeps, come from their mouths. Their pointed yellow teeth begin to squirm and wriggle. I realise, as their teeth curl in and out, that I'm seeing something totally bizarre. Aliens having a laugh. I can't wait to take you to school, says Dorf. This is the most interesting thing that has happened to me since Uvelda Pumpkin's stripes turned yellow when I squirted Hector juice down her throat by mistake. Nervously, I get out of bed. I see my reflection in a mirror on the wall opposite. I gulp. This isn't a dream. Alien worlds exist and I'm in one. Somehow I've landed in some far part of the galaxy, but it's okay, I tell myself. I'm going to be sent back to my Earth body sooner or later. In the meantime, this could be a totally freaky adventure. Well, how do you like your Twiggle body? Asks Dorf. Reckon as far as aliens go, I'm pretty cool, I say. I study my reflection. I definitely have some great pointed teeth. Dracula would be dead jealous. My one eye is very nicely shaped and my skin is a fine shade of green. My snake-like hair is deep purple, and since it twists and coils all by itself, I'll never have to worry about combing it. We can go to school together, says Dorf. This is so phantasmalistic. Do you have a smart Earth brain? No, I'm afraid I just have a regular dopier one, Dorf. I tell him. I can't concentrate at school. I'm really good at surfing, though. Do you have oceans on this planet? Of course we do. All planets with life forms have oceans. What's surfing? It's time you two had some breakfast, says his mother. Before I have a chance to explain, her wriggly fingers touch my shoulder. Her eye opens and shuts quickly. An alien wink, maybe? What are we having for breakfast? I don't suppose you guys eat cornflakes. Cornflakes, says my alien mum. What a charming name. Do they taste anything like Pooey Poms? Pooey Poms? This sounds like something pretty horrible. I'm taken into what must be an alien kitchen. There's no sink and no stove, just 4 shimmering stools, walls that look like the inside of an oyster shell, and a table that is made of glittering metal. My alien mum presses a red button on the wall, then catches 2 bowls that come straight out of a jelly-like panel. She puts the bowls in front of us. There's something in them that resembles mashed cockroaches. Yum, says Dorf. He reaches into the transparent bowl with all 20 fingers, takes out a black gooey gunk and puts it in his mouth. It's weird. I think I'm hungry, really hungry. That alien stomach of mine is making little popping alien noises. My fingers reach greedily into the bowl. My brain says, stop, this is gross. But my stomach says something else. The black gooey gunk is picked up by my 20 fingers and dumped into my mouth. My brain doesn't feel good about this, but my fingers aren't at all worried that some of my breakfast is still moving. This stuff's alive, I say to Dorf. Yes, it's very fresh. I swirl it around in my alien mouth and swallow. What does it taste like? Nothing on earth. My brain tells me I've just eaten a family of cockroaches and that I should be immediately throw up. My stomach says yum yum. My fingers reach for more. I hate this stuff. At least my brain does, I tell Dorf, but my stomach seems to love it. Dorf's yellow teeth wriggle happily at me. After breakfast, we wash and clean our teeth with something that looks like orange jelly. It helps keep our teeth bright yellow, Dorf explains. My stomach is full and I've had a long drink of something that looks like mud, yet I don't need to use the toilet. Dorf has no idea what a toilet is, so I have to explain it to him. That's very inefficient, he says to me. Our bodies simply recycle everything we eat. Nothing goes to waste, so nothing comes out of us. That's a relief. I really don't like the idea of Dorf explaining to me how to use an alien dunny. Have a good day at school, says my alien mum as we leave the house. Her wriggly fingers touch my forehead, then Dorf's. Her yellow teeth, and there are heaps of them, squirm around in her mouth as she gives me a beaming smile. Where's Dad? Asks Dorf. At the Space Museum, trying to find a way to get Spit back. She smiles kindly at me. I do hope he's okay on your planet, but I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, Frogface. You have a nice day. We leave the house through a large transparent door. I'm going to a new school that is not exactly like changing suburbs and going to a new school. This is much more scary.